Welcome back to episode 3 of the Remember Us podcast. Are you or have you ever been religious? If so, have you had questions that you sought out answers to? What if I told you that even those who have made it their life's mission to study, understand, and preach have also faced those questions? Today we welcome a longtime friend, Pastor John Pizzo, to the podcast. From the questions he himself has asked to the journey he has made to become a pastor, including his own life story and personal growth. Please welcome John along with our host, Rob Baystow.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to episode 3 of the Remember Us project. Tonight we have one of my best friends of over 15 years, Pastor Johnny Pizzo. Welcome to the podcast, brother.
Thank you so much for having me.
How you doing, man? It's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been a while. Lots been going on. Lots going on in life.
Yeah. So what kind of pastor are you right now?
Oh, I'm pretty much like at my church from the day you're born to like the day you have children. I'm your pastor.
Really?
I'm the children's pastor, the youth pastor, and the young adult pastor.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
So you're taking on a bunch of different roles.
Yeah. I wear a lot of different hats. You know, I go from like the nice little nursery Bible stories to trying to speak to college students and stuff like that. You know, all in the same week. It can be a lot jumping back and forth.
Psychologically taxing. Yeah.
But if you mix up the lessons, it gets a little awkward, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Breaking out the puppets for, college kids, it doesn't really work out.
So with us we have my brother Keith Baystow.
What's going on? Thanks for having me.
And then we have Drew Shook.
Hey, thank you for having me.
That was really sinister. I liked it.
I felt awkward there.
Yeah.
I love you all.
So, Drew, you had a couple questions you wanted to give John, right?
Yeah, so the first question I had was just, what questions did you ask? I'm curious. Like, what gets you to the point where you are now? Because, I've been there and asked those questions before myself, and I came out to having different answers than you. So I'm just curious, what answers did you get out of it?
Yeah, no, I definitely respect that question and understand that, For me, my biggest question, actually, I remember being in like high school and asking this question, like really wondering, like, what makes what I believe, what made Christianity true and not all the other religions? What's different about Jesus? What's different about Christianity compared to everything else? Because there's people who look at those things, those religions, and they're like, well, this is true. This is, they're going to look at me and tell me, that my belief is a lie or anything like that. And I was like, so then what makes Christianity different? What's the reasoning behind it? Mm-hmm. And as I looked at Christianity compared to everything else, it's the one religion where Jesus, God, actually comes down and meets humanity where they're. It's the opposite of human logic, Christianity. The God comes to us, comes to our level to save us so that we can be with him instead of us having to earn our way to get up to him or to this God. Mm-hmm. And it goes against human logic. And that was one of the biggest things first for me, because as humans, we think like our natural way of thinking is we got to earn what we get. Or if we mess up or we commit a crime, we deserve a certain punishment, right? Mm-hmm. And Christianity goes to the opposite of that. So it's hard to believe that it's something humans created because it's the opposite way we think. It's not something that a human would think of. It would have to take an outside entity to teach us that and tell us that. And it's the one religion that you see that happen in. And the people that spread the gospel, the people that founded the religion, who walked with Jesus, walked with the person and saw the miracles and died all separately, horrific deaths except for one. They died horrific deaths and stuck to what they know is true because they couldn't deny, because they actually witnessed it themselves. They were tortured, they were beaten, they were killed, and died horrible deaths. And if you knew deep down it was a lie and you were doing it for, popularity or status or anything like that, at that point when it comes to life and death, if you know it's a lie, why stand up for a lie? There's people that die for religions today, but they don't know it's a lie. The disciples, when they died, they would have had to have known if it was a lie or not. They knew what was true, and they still chose to die the way that they did. And that was kind of the starting point. Obviously, there's like a lot that you can go into and everything like that, but that was the first thing that kind of got me on my journey back to saying, okay, well, I guess that's what's different about Christianity. That's what's unique about it. So that's kind of what started. And that was the main question I was asking, amongst other things. But, that was the biggest one. That was the biggest one.
Wow. Just to jump in for a second. Now, you started questioning that at a very young age, or kind of like maybe in your adolescence? Well,
I would say right around like 11th grade. I had people in my life that were had me questioning it. I kind of put those questions in my head, and I started wondering it around like 11th, 12th grade, and I kind of kept the questions to myself, so I never really got the answers. And then I kind of wanted to live a certain way, so I just chased other things to try and get away from what I kind of felt like I knew was true, but I wasn't sure, But yeah, it was right around 11th, 12th grade, and then I actually went away to Cortland, went away, like a party school, whole thing, yeah. And that's actually where, like, God kind of flipped things around for me and really, like, brought me back in the place that you'd probably least expect. You'd think, go away to college and you
go to Cortica.
Yeah, well, I was at a Cortica. Yeah, you can't really remember some of it. But it's funny. But yeah, it was during that time of running away for sure. But yeah,
right,
yeah,
wow. Keith, do you have any things you want to kind of shoot John's way? Maybe anything that you want to chime?
Yeah, so I had a few questions. I actually wrote them down because I didn't want to forget them, and I wanted to make it like nice worded.
I appreciate
questions.
it.
That's good.
So the first one that I had was, if God is an all-knowing, all-powerful being, why did God have to sacrifice himself to himself to save us from sins when he's God? And if he's like, what's the word, omnipotent?
Yeah,
like unlimited power?
Yeah.
If that's the case, why couldn't he just bypass it? Why wasn't there like, why was Jesus's crucifixion the only way to atone for our sins?
That is an awesome question. And
it is.
So it's actually a really cool thing. Like, this is when someone broke this down for me, understanding the logic and what's behind it. It's a really, really cool thing to understand about like what Jesus did and who God is to us. So God is all-knowing, God is all-loving, but one of the main things about God is he is also a just God, meaning he's about justice, right? So it's like saying, like, if there was like a judge, right? Judge should maintain justice. That's his job, right? Mm-hmm. Say, the judge, right? Someone steals your car, right? And you go to court, and someone's standing before there, and the guy who stole your car, he knows the judge, right? And the judge looks at the guy he knows, and he's like, listen, I know this person. I love this person. Okay, I want the best for this person. I don't want to send them to jail. I don't want this punishment for them.
Right.
So I'm going to let them go. Would you feel that judge is just if he just let them go, let them off their charges because he loved them?
No.
So that's the predicament kind of that God was in, if you want to say, where he's just and he's loving, right? So somebody had to pay the price. He couldn't just let us off. Someone had to come and pay that price because the price had to be paid. Justice had to be served. So that's why he said, okay, I can either let them pay that and be eternally separated from me and that would be fair. That would be what we deserved. Or I can come, pay it for them. And because it's me, it's good enough to pay it. And then all they have to do is accept that payment. And that's it. The reason he came is because he had to maintain justice.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean
It's
the most concise way I can.
Very good.
That was really good. I mean, it kind of broke down a lot more than like I thought. Like, the thing I always had a question about, and funny enough, one of our editors, Rob Starsky, he brought this question up to, I think, actually you a long time ago when it came to Regal.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah,
Regal
luck.
days.
No. He actually said, though, if we found extraterrestrials on another place, right, would they believe in a one true God? Would they know who Jesus Christ is? Like, what is your take on that?
So that's a big what if question. I think if aliens like just came tomorrow, right? And we're like, hey, we're from Mars. How you doing?
Martians.
I'd be like, hey, Jesus died for your sins.
Right.
and he died for all living beings. You know, the Bible isn't a book that was given to give us all the information about all of life and how everything works.
Right.
The Bible's purpose was to show us who God is, what he did for us, and how to follow him. That's what its main purpose was. So the fact it doesn't talk about extraterrestrial life, it wasn't important to what the purpose of the Bible is. So, I mean, if aliens turned out to be, you know, exist, then Jesus died for their sins. If they don't exist, then they don't exist, you know?
That's wow. I mean, you answered my question very well.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't know, because it's a really big hypothetical
It is.
question.
I mean,
you know, I mean, like,
it's a what if.
I get what you're saying,
Yeah.
but like, if they were real, I would say that I would tell them and spread the gospel to them just as much as if I went to another country and they had no idea who Jesus was. You know?
You don't think they would have met him prior?
I think he came here and paid for his sins here, and that payment would be for them as
Equal
well.
anyway.
You know,
yeah. That's
I would
understandable.
think, yeah.
Okay.
So you talked a little bit about, but I want to go back. So we talked about how you talked about how God was a just person, right?
Yeah.
He is justice. Okay. But when you have the absolute power to snap your finger and change anything, okay, why are we paying for things that happened and I wasn't even around? I have cystic fibrosis. I've been dealt with this since I was born. Okay? I have died many, many times, or like almost died many, many times.
Yeah.
So I have to live every moment of my life almost in agonizing pain. There is... So I'm just supposed to deal with this. That I'm paying for a price that there is absolutely... I didn't do anything. I'm paying for something, and I'm in tremendous amounts of pain for...
That's interesting because it is a topic that's brought up a lot. It's like, why are there ailments in this world? Why is somebody like him suffering with fibrosis? Why is somebody suffering with cancer? You know, what kind of question? Like, what could you give some of the viewers?
Yeah. So I mean, that is a real question. That, you know, listen, I think no one can truly understand what you're going through other than you and people that are going through what you're going through. But I think a lot of people ask that question when they go through hard times in general. You know, I relate to that in that way, not in obviously to the extent like, you know, that you're talking
it's understandable.
About. It's completely.
No one's gonna know unless you do it through it, and I understand that. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when you say I'm paying for something I didn't do, you're talking like Adam and Eve type thing, right?
It's just in general. Because cystic fibrosis is a genetic disease that you were born with. This is not like cancer, lung cancer, where you get it by doing something that could be sinful in that context. Right. It's something that I am born with. I had no control. There is nothing that could have even prevented or even at the time figured out that it was I had this. So I came day one having this. That, to me, it's inconceivable that somebody as a powerful that can go, boom, it's gone. There's no justice in that.
Okay.
There is no justice in me having to pay for this unless there is maybe in a past life, but that's also not in the Bible.
Right.
That's also not in anything. So why am I paying for this?
So I understand your perspective, and I want to challenge that perspective. And what you're saying, how you're looking at it.
Cool.
Because what you're saying is I'm paying for something, and reality, the reason you have the ailment you do, the reason that there are ailments in the world, isn't because you're paying for something you did badly. Like, people don't get cancer because they were a bad person and they earned that cancer, and God's giving them that cancer.
So that's fine.
Right.
I could even change the word here. Basically what I'm asking in general is just straight up,
why does God allow it?
Why do I have to go through hell every day?
Absolutely. And
you know, like, even if you remove the paying from this equation here.
Yeah.
Sure.
Go ahead, John. I'm
So,
actually curious about this.
No. So, so when Adam and Eve, right, when God created Adam and Eve, he knew what they were going to do. He knew what had to be done so that he could show the world his love, show the world his mercy, and make the sacrifice that he did. He knew what was going to have to happen, and he still chose to create Adam and Eve anyway. When Adam and Eve committed that sin, right? Basically what happened was a genetic disease that entered humanity, right? And we were all born now in sin because what sin is, it's corruption of God's creation.
Right.
It's corruption of everything that he did, everything that he instilled, everything that he meant for good. What sin is corruption. So ailments, sickness, all those things entered the world because sin entered the world and began to corrupt us as humans. So he could have left us in our sin, left us in our corruption with our sickness and our hopelessness and our pain.
Right.
But instead he said, I'm not going to leave you in your hopelessness. I'm going to send my son to die so that you have hope, so that, yes, things of this world are going to be rough. You're going to go through things, but you have an eternal hope after this. And I'm going to send my Holy Spirit to be with you, to help you get through those things. It doesn't mean life's going to be perfect. Look at a lot of the followers biblically. They went through pain. Mm-hmm. They went through torture. They didn't live comfortable lives. Right. They lived for the glory of God, and God got them through it. God gave them strength. God gave them peace. God helped them get through it if you allow yourself to lean on him to get through it. And no matter what happens here, you have the hope because of what he did in eternity. At the end of the day, this life is a blink of an eye for every single one of us.
Absolutely.
But that's what. So you're telling me, because that's the biggest thing. Like, and I'll let you know. Mm-hmm. I'll continue and let them move forward. But so that's what, like, so you're telling me that not only if I don't believe, I will go up there, but you're telling me that in our short lives we have here, that if somebody messes up or somebody does whatever for sin wise, that they're internally damned. So in 60 years average, whatever the life expectancy is, especially because it used to be a lot lower.
For cystic fibrosis? Are you talking about for cystic
fibrosis?
Well, no, I'm talking about
or
in
life
general,
in general,
right?
General.
Yeah, so you're telling me in those X amount of years,
yeah,
you are internally damned. Like, do you realize how long eternal is? Like, that's like asking, like, do you know what infinity is? Like, do you realize that just X years in this small, minuscule, tiny number is equivalent of eternal damnation potential or eternal blessing? And so do I get a pass because I have cystic fibrosis immediately, even though I don't believe in God?
So here's the thing, and I completely understand the frustration and what you're talking about. But the one thing I want to point out that there's a lot of misconception when it comes to hell and this whole damnation thing, right? We look at hell as this place where God goes, oh, you were not good enough, or you didn't believe in me, so I'm sending you here to punish you, right? Is that kind of like how most, like, you view hell, right? Like, hell is the place that God is sending you because you didn't believe in him.
It's not just for sending, but it's just for if you mess up. It's
punishment. It's your sentence.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so biblically, when you look at, like, the way it is described actually by the Bible, not by misconception, because that's my biggest thing, is I'm looking at the word. And I'm not looking at what I conceive of what other people. So let me just explain to you what it is, right? Hell is not a prison cell that God is sending you to be tortured and killed or beaten or whatever for all of eternity. What hell is the place that is separated from him. And God is all good. God is love. God is, like, even on this earth, there is God's presence. So this is why there's love, there's goodness, there's positivity, right? Mm-hmm. Picture how bad this world is. Now imagine if there was none of that. That's why it's called hell, because it is completely absent of God's presence. Yeah. That's what hell is, and that's why it's so horrible and horrendous, and it is torture. Yeah. The reason that we can't be with him is because, right, we talked about how he's a just God, but he's also an all-good, holy God. So if something is holy, right, once there's a speck of something unholy, it automatically becomes unholy. Like, it's like if you have a white t-shirt, right? You could take the smallest pen and make a dot, right? now that shirt is dirty, whether you, like that shirt is stained no matter what. Even it doesn't matter how small it is, it's stained. It's no longer a clean white shirt, right? It's the same thing with holiness and unholiness. If you're holy, you can't, nothing bad can be there. It's got to be completely holy, right?
Right.
So when sin came in, we separated ourselves from God, and it's not just because of what Adam and Eve did. We do it. Every single one of us mess up. I mess up. Every single one of us has lied, has cheated, has done something that is sinful, that has broken one of the 10 Commandments. Mm-hmm. We've all done something that is unholy, and we deserve to be separated from God. And that is what's amazing about the cross. That is what people, when they talk about being thankful, that is what the amazing gift is of the cross, is the fact that he said, okay, I get you're not going to be holy enough. That's fine. I'm going to live holy enough. I'm going to be that middleman for you.
Right.
So that you can be with me for eternity. So that you can now be seen as holy. Now you can be made clean. So it's not a matter of God saying, oh, I'm punishing you and I'm sending you there. It's literally him saying, I gave everything so you don't have to be separated from me. All you have to do is accept that payment, and now you can be, and now you're not dirty anymore. Now you are clean because you let go of those things and you allowed me to wash over. If you're not allowing God to clean you, if you're not allowing God to wash over you, then you're choosing to remain dirty. And if God is all good, then he can't be all good and allow there to be the bad and the sin. You understand? Those two can't be the same.
Yeah.
You know?
I get that. I get that. And I think, because I want Keith to actually jump in on this topic because I feel like he's got a lot to offer with this. I just want to add one thing. It's kind of interesting because it's like, I've known Drew's up there with you, best friends. And, I've seen a lot of pain that Drew's gone through, but I've also seen a lot of beautiful things come from his life that sometimes you don't notice actually in the moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And a lot of times, and as humans we can, and again, I know it because I've, things I've gone through. It's easy, you can focus on the pain, but you also see the good that comes from those things and the impact that you can make. And again, it's not making any light of what you've been through.
Of course.
I watched you go through what you're going through too, Drew, and
So jumping in on the God is a just God and everything. I do reading online about parts of the Bible and stuff like that, and this one section really stood out to me. Leviticus 25, 44, 46, where it talks about slavery.
The research.
Right.
All right.
I respect that, man.
And I wanted to be prepared.
Yeah,
good
you
discussion.
did a good job.
But so if we talk about God is a just God, why would that section be included in it? Is he the same God from the Old Testament? Did he change? Because I do have the obviously I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, the section. Yeah. I do have it written here, and it's as for your male and female slaves whom you may have, you may buy male and female slaves from among the nations that are around you. And it goes on and on. If I would just like to know, if he is a just God, why would that be included in the book? And if he's not the same God from the Old Testament, what happened?
No, so he is the same God, Old and New Testament. The Old, God had to do things a little bit differently because it was pre-Jesus, before Jesus. When Jesus died for our sins and now became that middleman, we had our direct line to God. Before that, things had to be done a little differently when it came to separating his people and protecting his people and making sure, helping them follow him, right? Mm-hmm. So certain things had to be done differently. When it comes to slavery, again, it's all about context when you look at that kind of stuff, because I was challenged with that question before too, but when you look at the context, when you look at the culture, it's not the slavery that's talking about there. It's not the slavery that we think of when we think of slavery in America and things like that. It was prisoners of war, different things like that. It was a position that was held, and there was different things, but it was people paying off debts. It was things that people went into more willingly at times too. So it was a different thing that we think of now when we see that word slavery, because also when you look back at the original translations, it doesn't, that word in the original Hebrew doesn't exactly translate to what we're accustomed to thinking of today with the, obviously mistreatment and, it's there's a difference there. It was more of a position. It was more of, what was kind of going on and the crazy thing is though too, is when you look at like Abraham Lincoln and like, in his run when he was giving reasoning for getting rid of slavery, he used the Bible to abolish slavery. The Bible was his core. He was quoting scripture because the Bible is what talks about all men being created equally. It talks about how we should, that we need to love and have respect for each other. We can't, treat each other like that in the way that, slaves are being treated in America. So the Bible is very against what slavery was in America and was used to get rid of slavery in America. What it's talking about there is not what we think of when we hear it's. You see that word slavery, and it's a taboo word, obviously for good reason.
Yeah,
but
when it mentions buy male, and
because
female
it's
slaves.
buying their, buying their services. If they were in a debt and they entered into slavery, they had to serve that time to pay off that debt. So you can buy and sell those slaves and things like that, but it wasn't in the way where they were like being taken and forced into certain things or anything, or maybe they were prisoners or, because they committed some kind of crime or something like that. It was different than the way we think of it now. They were serving a sentence or serving time or something like that.
Can I, he brings up a good point because I feel like the Old Testament and the New are just so different. Like God was so like, I want to say like on a warpath or like wrathful. Like he had to make a lot of things come into motion for, certain things to happen, like with Moses and things like that. My question, honestly, to just piggyback off of Keith a little bit is like, I mean, he did say, he did ask the question, like, what changed? But why was God so aggressive? Like, why was he, what exactly? And also, one other question, why is the Bible, why do we have to take it in certain contexts? Why can't they just retranslate it to now? Why do we stick with the old, translation?
Well, so when I say you look at the original, like what the Hebrew word, it's slavery is what closest translate. It does in our English language, it's the best translation for what that word is. But when you look at it in context, look at the culture, look at what was going on around there. It's not it doesn't exactly mean like they were saying that, but it doesn't exactly mean what it means today.
Yeah.
Like certain slang that we would say like. Just certain certain slang would mean one thing to us, but they could say the same thing. They would not mean the same thing back then.
Right.
It's just when I say you look at it in context, you gotta look at what they were saying, why they were saying it, and how they spoke to get the right message and understand what they were saying. And when it comes to the difference, it's the same God in the Old Testament and New Testament.
Yeah.
It's just you're right. He had to be more aggressive in certain things he did because there wasn't that personal relationship that everyone can have.
Right.
He had that one chosen person that he was able to work through, but not everyone had their own ability to have their own relationship with God because Jesus hadn't come yet. They were building to that. And there had to be those firm rules that strength against the enemies to keep his people safe, to keep them away from, the things that they were facing then. Yeah. And because, even then, like the people then and what were around them was a really corrupt, dangerous, cannibalistic, a lot of really violent people,
right.
That were coming against the Israelites and, that were enemies of God's people, So it was a different, they're both sides of God. There's that just and that wrath that, there is, the Bible says to fear God, meaning, and it doesn't mean to it means to respect who he is, respect his power, but he also loves and has grace and has mercy. And you do see that in the Old Testament as well. It's just you see two different, the same God, but just more parts of him exemplified in different areas.
Okay. I see on people's posts on Instagram, I see I'm a God-fearing man. You know what I mean? Like what is
it means to have a respect.
Okay. Do people know it like that? Or are they just saying I'm a fearing God?
Most they're fearing it's sitting back and going, oh my gosh, like this powerful God, and yeah, you could say I don't want to be on the other side of him, I want to align myself, but that's out of that respect,
Gotcha.
So, here's my issue with all this is number one, I used to be I still am. What am I talking about? I'm very big into learning ancient history. I wanted to be a history teacher.
Major, yeah, you always were.
right? So the problem is that slavery back then was still slavery like we know it now. It was even worse than that.
Right.
On top of that, we have the Crusades that no one likes to talk about. It's a giant taboo thing.
Why is that why?
It's because people want to forget about it. Like the Crusades was literally using God as a way to get power, corruption, and everything. And this God of justice let this happen. And this was well after Jesus was crucified. We watched, what was it? Millions, yes, millions massacred, murdered, children, women, everything. And all under the guise of God.
Right.
Because he gave man free will. Just because somebody comes under the guise of being religious or anything like that doesn't mean that they're following God or doing what God wants to do. Man corrupts. Man does what he wants. Man desires power. So the Crusades have no reflection on who God is. It's just a reflection on what humanity is.
Yeah, who man is.
And their own free will. I be honest with you, there is anyone who is.
But if this God is justice,
right?
Mm-hmm. If this is like more along the lines of what it comes into, like my disease. It's like you are your justice. You are God. You created everything. You are everything. Like you are everybody. You are everything.
Yes.
He could literally snap his fingers, and hypothetically, and that's gone. There's a difference between having to deal with something like I had to deal, and it's like losing your life at such a drastic, young age, or brutally, or all this stuff. Like, it's like, I don't know. It's like, do you like? It's a joke. You like nerd stuff like I do, right?
Yeah.
You think Batman would allow that to happen if he had the opportunity? Batman is justice incarnate. He's vengeance, right?
Yeah, but look at what Batman went through. I feel like that's a really tough example because, Batman went through a lot.
And then Batman's not perfect either. I agree with you. It's just the concept of this person of just justice doesn't feel like there's justice. That's one of my biggest problems, is that it doesn't feel like there's any justice being brought out.
Right. That's a fair question.
It's a fair question, but at the end of the day, they are going to get the people who led the Crusades, right? If they went in God's name and they did things out of their own selfish ambition and they never repented for any of that and they die in those sins, right? They're going to get justice. The justice is going to be that separation from him. The justice will be served. God is going to have his final say. But again, he gave us free will. This world is a fallen world. This world has sickness. This world has unfair things in it, which is why he gave a hope for eternity. He gave us a way to get past it, a way to get through it through him. We're still going to have sickness. We're still going to have rough things happen. But if we we can either choose to be angry about it, sulk in it, and let it, and be angry about it for the rest of our lives. And that's really it. Or we can allow God to work through that and use it for good, use it for power, use it to turn it around and really make an impact. And again, I've been through things, I've seen people go through things, and there's the people that either do that or don't, and the people that allow God to be a part of that situation is people that see their bad turn into something really, really good. And I get, you're looking for justice and saying it's not justice for me to, it's not justice if I'm sick. It's a casualty of this world. God can just snap his fingers and say, okay, I'm done with this whole world. I'm done. Here we go. We're just, everyone who's good, you're coming with me. Everyone who's not, you're not coming with me. But did you ever think about the fact that the longer God waits to do that, the more love, patience, and mercy he's showing, because he's giving every single one of his creation the most time and the best chance to come to him before it's too late. So he's saying, I'm going to wait as long as possible. Yes, I know there's going to be sickness and I want to help them through it. Yes, I know there's going to be hurt. Yes, I know there's going to be pain. There's going to be unfair things because of man's free will that people are going to go through. There's going to be all those things, and that pains me. And I want to step in, but the longer I wait, the more I give the ones that I love a chance to know me so that they can be with me for all eternity. Because at the end of the day, If God is this omniscient God, right? And he sees beginning and end, right? He doesn't just see right now, right? He knows 20 years from now, 30 years from now. He knew before you were born. He knew when you were going to be born. Bible says that he knew every single hair on your head, right? He knew all those things. He sees the beginning and the end. And what he cares about most, because he knows how quick this life goes, he cares about most is your eternity. That's what means the most, and that's where justice is served, because that is where the most time is. You said it yourself. Think about eternity. That is what's most important. And that's how much he cares the most about that. Yes, he cares about your life and the now, and he wants to help and make it better, and there could be healing, and that has happened, and there could be strength to getting through it, and God can be your foundation. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is your eternity. And when I was talking about slavery before, when I'm talking about what the Bible is referring to in those scriptures, I understand there was bad slavery then and what I'm saying, but it also talks about biblically how they're not supposed to the people that were under them that served as slaves, because even I'll even give you it, the Bible talks about the prodigal son, right? And it talks about how the prodigal son basically sold himself into servitude. He served as a servant to the man. And this was, like a person that was going to find redemption basically in the story and everything like that. It wasn't a thing that was like, when the Bible talks about it, it's a lot of things that, yes, in war crimes, if they were in debts and things like that. But the Bible talks about how they were to be treated well. They were not to be mistreated. That they were meant to be, that their master, the one who was over them, was meant to take care of them and make sure they were okay.
Yeah.
And so a slave of a Christian person at that time was treated very, very well. It's not like what that's what I'm saying. It's not like what we're thinking of now today. And the reason slavery was able to be abolished in America was because it used the Bible, because you weren't meant to mistreat and treat human beings less than, because the Bible talks about how everyone is created equally. There's no one who's not created equally. That's what I'm saying. When the Bible talks very much against slavery in the way that we think of it. That's what I was saying.
That's interesting. I was just going to ask, because I kind of want to dive a little bit more into your life, soon,
yeah.
And like where you've been recently.
Yeah.
But there's one question I personally wanted to ask, is the infiltration of the church. I feel like there are some sinister people that have infiltrated the church over the years, whether it's the Catholic Church, maybe even the Christian Church. There's actually a known movie. I think it's called, what is it? Spotlight, where it had.
I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah.
Spotlight.
It had Michael Keaton in it, and it actually talked about, in this, censor, it talked about pedophiles becoming priests. Now I know you're a pastor, and it's a little different, obviously.
Yeah.
What's your take though on maybe God or people being allowed as humans to like sin like that and be able to infiltrate the most holy area to be?
So especially when it comes to Catholicism, like even when it comes to the Crusades, there's the big difference between Catholicism and Christianity is Catholicism has it, there's the message of the gospel at the core, but the truth is it has a lot of added on human traditions,
right.
Human things that were placed that aren't in the Bible, but people felt like it should be there, that led to a lot of the corruption that you talk about. Mm-hmm. And for me, when you see that, it's just an example of what happens when us as humans try and take control of things and add the things that we want to add. It becomes corrupt when it's led by us. The fact that priests can't marry, it's not something that you would find in the Bible, that a leader of the church can't get married.
Yeah. Paul
Paul says that if you have that gift to not want that, meaning like if you have the gift like he had to just focus completely on the Lord, phenomenal, you do that. But he says, if you don't, then get married. I encourage you to be married. And we can, you could draw the line of how maybe that adds to a lot of that infiltration that you're talking about, a lot of that corruption. So it's really just when humans take control and they want to be the ones saying what we should do and what we shouldn't do, instead of just looking at the Bible. And that for me, Christianity is the biggest difference. Is it's what the Bible says and what the Bible doesn't say, and that's what you follow. So
okay, wow. I mean, like honestly, That was good. I mean, like, I have like these questions always seem to like, I almost forget them because I want to ask them. But I know, Keith and Drew, they're. What would you guys call yourselves? Would you guys call yourself more like on the agnostic field or like?
I would lean towards non-believer. Yes.
Okay.
I would say.
All right.
Yeah,
And Drew.
I've gone from like believing because of my grandmother to atheist to just non-believing in anything.
Mm-hmm.
But also, again, I just wanted to ask these questions because I think it's good to bring it out there. I don't want the entire thing to be about.
No,
I
that
want to hear about
that
more
was
about
really
you.
good.
And
I'll be honest with you guys. Like,
it was really good
I think like one of the biggest misconceptions when it comes to the church, and for good reason, because there's been people that have represented Christianity in this way, and they're wrong. Christianity, like me, I am, Jesus. He's not afraid. I'm not afraid of the answer of the questions. If anything, I encourage it. Like, I lead my youth group, and I tell them all the time, like, I want you to ask questions. I want you to talk to me, but I want you to seek truth, ask the questions, not be afraid, and find your own relationship with God. Find it for yourself. Dive in the Bible yourself. Don't just listen to what I say.
Yeah.
Don't just just because I got a mic and I'm standing in a pulpit, don't just believe everything I'm saying. If I'm quoting a scripture, I'm saying this is here. Go read it. Go look at it yourself. Ask these questions. Like this. Jesus is truth. And if I truly believe truth is truth and he is the way, he is truth, then I'm not afraid of questions proving him wrong because it's going to come back that he is truth and he is right. So, I'm not afraid of it. I don't take it. I always welcome it. We've always had that. Me and Rob go way.
We've had this conversation.
how many Xbox parties did we stay out till 3 o'clock in the morning?
We were playing
Dude,
on.
you guys think this is my first time? This guy was at 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm half asleep.
This ain't his first rodeo, baby.
Yeah.
We used to talk on
I mean,
Guardian.
yeah.
Imagine-
me and John used to go at it.
You guys
Like,
did.
I used to
Imagine
be
years.
really like, I'm just doing this for the podcast. Like, I can go way worse.
Yeah.
And like, we used to like.
Imagine having this conversation while trying to play Halo
Yeah.
and going, 0-32 because I stink. But still, like
John would be
stuff-
like, "Watch out, there's two above you." But why did God create man?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, be like, all right, that's not an in-depth question, Rob. Fine, let's do it.
Well, now that we really touched on everything, questions that everybody had, maybe the viewers even have, I want to kind of touch on you a little bit and know what's going on. So,
Sweet.
What's transpired over the last couple of years? It seems like a lot of huge life changes with you.
It's been some up and down. I kind of alluded a little earlier, just kind of going through stuff, I won't go like too, I'll just kind of give it an overview of it because I don't want to be like, spreading like talking, putting anything out there. Like, it's just, is what it is.
Yes.
I got married young, to somebody kind of like I thought I could trust, and it was kind of like looking back at it, I realized it was like a safety thing. Growing up for me, it was like getting married was like my number one thing. Like,
right.
I couldn't wait to get married. I wanted to be married, and that became my priority over anything else, especially as I look back and like I learned from that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like that was it. And there was a person I grew up with, and there was like a safety thing there.
Yeah.
And so I ignored a lot of things, and going into it, and made that decision, and ended up in a short time kind of. It ended up not working out. Just basically ended up happening where there was stuff going on, and I'll just kind of leave it there, kind of like worst nightmare type of situations where I kind of had no choice. But in it, I learned a lot about myself.
Right.
And I really went through going through a crossroads when it came to this, where I would either allow it to take me down a path and make me into somebody I'm not, or I would allow myself to learn from it and let God, and really like everything that I learned growing up, everything that I believed in, really let that speak for itself, like actually put it to the test. When I was going through it, and everything was kind of happening, and like different things are coming my way. In those moments, I kind of my mindset was just like, this is where it's real.
Right.
This is where this whole Jesus God thing, this is where it's real.
Yeah.
And
I had a question about that, not to cut you off,
Yeah.
but, you know, that I feel like that's the ultimate test of faith, especially going through something like you did. I mean, it takes a lot of not just believing in Christ, but also, like, just as a human trying to figure it out yourself, you know,
Yeah.
putting your trust in something, you know, to
yeah,
to get
you know,
through
you get those questions when you go through something like that of like, why, you know, I thought, you know, why is this going on? Why was this allowed to happen to me? And all these kind of things. But, you know, that's really where it becomes real. It's like, you know what? People are people. God gave us free will. This came my way. What am I going to do with it?
Absolutely.
You know, and everything that happened, I said to myself, I'm going to make sure every way that I conduct myself, I want to be able, when I do it, I want to be able to look my God in the eye afterwards. I want to hold to who I am, and I'm not going to stoop to anyone's level. I'm not going to allow myself to go down any road that I had every right to go down.
Absolutely.
But that I just wasn't going to do it. I was going to walk out of that situation saying, God, I want to be able to look you in the eye. And because I did that, there was a whole nother level of experiencing really who he was. Because I went through like that point, like not knowing where God was and really searching and really wanting those answers and really just saying, you know what, God, like, I don't know why, I don't know what, you know, what's going to happen. You know, when getting married is your number one thing growing up, getting divorced is your biggest nightmare.
Absolutely.
And that's what I was experiencing. That really was like the biggest thing, was like realizing that was going to be me and having that and having to go through that and starting over. There's a lot of like just not knowing what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And more than ever in my life, I had to really put my faith to the test and say, God, I'm going to trust you. And I can honestly say that going through that, experiencing everything that I experienced, because of where I am now, I'm thankful for it. My relationship with God is so much stronger and so much deeper than it's ever been. Yeah. I know who I am better than I ever have. Right. I know what I want better than I ever have.
Right on.
You know, because I took a situation that I could have been really angry about. I could have shaken my fist at God about and really been bitter about, but I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to let you use this. And I was open. I was real about it from the very start with everybody. I'm not, you know, ashamed of anything that I've been through, because my mindset was like, you know what, God's going to get glory from this.
Absolutely.
And like people are going to be able to watch my life and see God work.
Absolutely.
And that's exactly what's happened. You know, people, you know, it's like I am in a place that is so healed and so good. I am in a place that is so much farther along than anyone would ever expect. Like even I could have expected, where I'm just good with where I'm at, and I'm excited about what's going forward. And even though this hurt, and you know, and this thing that I experienced, God was able to really use it. And you know, and like that's kind of the thing, man. Like unfair things happen, and you know, that's the thing with this world, is like you can do everything right, and still unfair things are going to happen.
Yeah.
But if you let God in that situation, he can use that to really push you forward and put you in a place that you never expect to be.
Yeah.
You know, because as unfair as my situation was, at the end of the day, the most unfair thing to ever happen was somebody dying for things that they never did, and taking the blame like Jesus did for me. Yeah. So it's like, that's the most unfair thing that I've ever heard happen. Doesn't matter how unfair my situation is, you know? So I just, you know, I let God lead. And, you know, I ended up in a place where I'm here because of him. And there's already been so many situations where like I've been able to use that to help other people. Yeah. And it's worth it. You know, it's worth it. So it's pretty crazy. Yeah.
I mean, that's astounding that you've been able to overcome it in like such a certain amount of time. You know, like there's been so many trials like that you've had to go through in like the last like couple of years, man. And like really just you put your trust in and your faith in the Lord, and it's come back, you know, fruitful. You know?
I want to let you know that straight up, regardless of what my beliefs are with everything, I want to let you know that I am proud of you.
Absolutely.
I am so proud of you.
Yeah. I think we all could agree
you went
that.
through hell and you're still standing. You're still out here. Like,
yeah, man.
You could have went down a dark
could have
place
went
or whatever.
south.
And I wanted to let you know that
I
it's
agree.
a friend forever, as long as I can remember, honestly.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of you.
I really appreciate that. And it, when you hear people give glory to God, I know it sounds like a stereotypical thing, but as a person who really was in it
Yeah.
and like really experienced what I experienced, when I tell you if it wasn't for the reality of who he is, who God is, I mean, like a tangible, really seeing who he is. If it was not for that, I would not be where I am. I would not have been able to cope and do what I did. Like, I would not have been able to remain the person that I was. It was so unnatural. It was so against. It was a supernatural thing.
Yeah.
Because John Pizzo could not have done it. And it was only him in me being there and really being my foundation that. And it's like, you know what, man, like if I had to go through that to really get to experience that and see that, I'm thankful for it. That's really how it is.
I mean, physically and mentally, you're the strongest I've ever seen you.
Well, again, dude, it's a result of full surrender. It's a result of just saying, man, like, God, like, I don't know, but you got it.
I think
I
that's
trust
so
you.
hard to do. You know, like
It is.
just to like lay down everything that you're feeling in the moment. People are afraid to do that. I could say firsthand, I probably would be too.
Absolutely, bro. I mean, absolutely. You know, it's kind of like you ever hear like Peter's taking a step out of the boat onto the rough way when he walked on water.
Yeah.
You know, like that's what it is. That life is that. Like that's the whole point. Like that's a huge point of that whole why that happened.
Yeah.
Because that's life, man. Like, you're going to get rocked with things that don't seem fair. You're going to get rocked with things that come out of nowhere. There's going to be so many points in your life where you're like, man, like, I don't know what's going to come. I don't know, like, where to go from here.
Yeah.
And humans, we are so scared of that. We want to be in control because we feel safe. But the truth is, you're never going to be in control. You think you will. People like to fool themselves into this idea that they got it or that, they have it all figured out. But all it takes is one little thing. All it takes is one doctor's report. All it takes is one relationship to mess you up. All it takes is something, and it can all get flipped on its head. There's nothing really in this world, man. Like, there's nothing that you can't depend on anything. Like, you can depend on who God is and what he is and what he wants to be to you. You can put your faith in everything else. You can put your faith in relationships. I did that to a degree. You can put your faith in a job and money, security, health. All of those things can be taken just like that. Everything, it can come and go. And the thing I really learned, man, is there's one constant. There is one that you can rely on no matter what. There is only one that will never let you down. And that's him. And I experienced that.
Yeah, you definitely did. I mean, that's really, it's hard to put into words, but it's like, I want to say I'm proud of you, but there's more than just the word proud. I don't know, more than the word.
Yeah.
But I think the one thing that I have a question about is somebody that's maybe like atheist or agnostic, right? How do they notice any sort of sign? Like when things are bad, right? Like, for instance, maybe we even bring up the other person on the podcast, Drew, right?
Right.
He has chosen to try to believe in God, right? And there are times in his life where he actually has prayed, but he feels like it hasn't been answered. But there are times in his life when things are just absolutely beautiful. But could it be possible that he's just not noticing the times that God's placing in him? Is he? And I'm not just targeting you in general. I'm talking about people that are not very holy and believe in God. Do they maybe just miss some of the great things, like messages and things that God's trying to put in their life?
Even me,
Yeah.
like I don't have cystic fibrosis or a certain illness like that, but
Yeah.
I would pretty much say I'm a non-believer, so it also applies to me too. People that just
Absolutely.
maybe have never. And I've prayed too. I was raised in a Catholic family and everything like that, but I never. Every time I was in church and everything, I never felt, or maybe like there was something there. I just misinterpreted it or something, you know?
Yeah. I think that's a real question. I think to a degree, yes.
Yeah.
You know what you're saying. I think it comes with. I think a lot of people have they're looking in the wrong place, and that's why they miss it.
Right.
When it comes to God, because we get this stereotypical. You know, when we think of God and God doing something, we think of like, you know, the heavens opening up and the light shining down and, you know, something falling from the sky and having this moment, right? And we think that's God. If that doesn't happen, or this feeling. And the thing I would always say to the people that are looking for the feeling is if God operated through your feelings, he can never be the consistent God that he is. Because think about how inconsistent your feelings are.
Yeah. Wow. Wow.
Your feelings are this
It's
up
true.
and down
It's
constantly.
true.
There's no camera, so I had to explain that.
Just like you make the hand
Your
signal.
feelings are a roller coaster.
They are.
So if God operated through your feelings, if he operated even through like what is happening in your like you know, in what you're experiencing, he couldn't be the consistent God. Yes, are there moments where something can happen and it causes a feeling within you? Sure. But do you think I was feeling good in when I was going through what I was going through?
Yeah,
No, I wasn't feeling good. It's not through that feeling. It's through that seeing, like, it's through that really taking a second and saying, okay, who is he? You know, was Jesus real? Did he do what he did? And now out of my appreciation, I'm just going to live for him. I'm going to operate in that relationship with him. But if we're looking for the feeling and that's what's our driving course, it's going to be inconsistent. And even, you know, maybe you'll have that feeling, but then the feeling will go away and then you'll feel like God's not there. You know, it doesn't go off of that.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we look for that feeling, we look for that experience, and then maybe sometimes we get it or we don't, and we get discouraged. Or we get when it comes to us giving God a chance, and I say that in quotes, a lot of people say that I gave God a chance. Okay, well, what was giving him a chance? Are you living the exact same way you want to live, doing the things that he says is going to lead to a life of frustration? Like all the things that God says like not to do, it's not like don't do it because, oh, like, you know, I just want you to like, you know, it's so for a sole reason of being holy or whatever. When he says not to do, all the things he says not to do is because when they're things you do, they lead to something that hurts you.
Absolutely.
You know, like everything that God says don't do, there's a support group for people who are addicted to doing it. Don't get drunk, AA meetings. Don't have, you know, sex outside of marriage. Now, that's a tough one, but hey, there's those, you know, those like those sex addict support groups.
Absolutely.
Like when God says not to do something, like there's support groups for everything that he says not to do. He's saying it because he knows what those things lead to. He knows the hurt it's going to lead to, the frustration, the holes that it's going to leave, the scars that it's going to leave. So he's saying, don't do them because I know best. I know what's best for you, and I'm trying to tell you don't do them. So when we give God a chance, are we still allowing all those things in our life and then going to God and going, God, help me, or God, get me out of this? And God's saying, well, the first thing you got to do is stop doing those things because that's what's the root of your issue.
Yeah.
Or it's we go to God, we pray, and then we don't think, and then that's it. You know, we think about him every Sunday, or we think about him even just once a night. And then my challenge to you would be, what kind of relationship is that? How much are you actually giving that a chance? Like, would you feel like a girl is giving you a chance if she just texted you like once a week and like had like a little conversation with you and then that was it?
No, not at all.
It's not a relationship.
No.
Relationship is staying consistent. Relationship is really pursuing. So I'd say to the people that, you know, have maybe given God a chance, how much of a chance did you really give him? How much did you really let him in?
Absolutely.
You know, how much did you know, like, because the thing is, he gives you that free will. It's your choice how much he impacts your life. And if you're choosing to keep things in that keep him out, then that's your choice of keeping God out of your life.
Absolutely. All right.
You know, so that's kind of what ends up with a lot of people missing certain things, you know, and if you're not familiar with how he works, you're not going to see him working. You know, like, he works through people, he works through church, he works through certain things, But like, if you're not familiar with how he works, you're gonna miss it. You know, like, and I say to like Drew, like, yeah, I've been saying to you this for years, and I'm still gonna stick to it. You know, you say, hey, like God never did anything or whatever, but you know, I've always been a friend who, because of what he did for me, I love you. And because of who he was to me, I want to be that for you.
Yeah.
And that is him working.
It's a vessel.
You know, that is him, you know, saying that. And I understand it's a tough thing. I get it. But I'm just, you know, that's just one example. But, you know.
I mean, I appreciate it and I understand it. It's just that there's also a level of, I don't think, at the end of the day, I think that you are special to me and you're a close friend. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's you, you know, that's you, because you are the kind-hearted person. You are one of the nicest people I've ever met.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily God. That's you, who, like, I give you credit. I don't give God credit for that. I give you the credit, because if you didn't, you know, speak or, you know, come up to me and hang out and do all these things, we wouldn't be friends. God didn't do that. You did that.
And I appreciate that. I really do. And the fact that, you know, because I you know, I very much appreciate your friendship and who you are. And you're, you know, that means a lot to me that you think of me that way. But I can honestly tell you that it is because of who he is in my life that I've been able to be that person. I would not be that person without him. Maybe I'd be able to be that person at times, but not consistently.
I could see that. I understand. And I think that no matter what, I think it's a rabbit hole that we could go down forever.
Yeah, we could be here for hours.
Yeah.
We've
For
done
sure.
this before.
For sure.
Podcasts, but it's
absolutely.
It's,
and I think that you guys have both found a common medium. Well, everybody, and I think it's really good. There's actually a couple questions that were written in by some people beforehand.
Questions from the audience.
Almost in a way. We got a question basically, when it comes to new diseases, viruses, and even the mass shootings that have taken place over the last couple of years, why does it seem like there has been more recent horrors in the world, and why hasn't God intervened or done anything revolving them?
So, first thing, God gave free will.
Yeah.
That is out of his love and mercy.
All right.
He desired, like, there was angels, right, who served him, right?
Okay.
He created man to have a relationship with. If he forced you to be a certain way and forced you to love him, would that really be love? No, it would be just more robots and drones doing what he wanted. There needed to be free will for there to be real relationship and real love. Mm-hmm. With sin and with free will comes the ability to do what you want to do. And if you say, oh, God, like, well, you know, why don't you get rid of those sinners? Then I would say to you, then, well, where do you draw the line? Because you're a sinner too. Yeah. And, you know, yeah, sure, you want to draw a line at a certain point, but part of his mercy and his patience and everything, he allows us to have the free will, allows us to figure those things out, because he's trying to give every single person the most amount of time to figure it out, to see who he is. Yeah. So when he allows just free will to happen, and that's what leads to the mass shootings and everything like that, is because that's that person's free will, and that's what they're doing. They're abusing it, but that's what leads to those things. And it's both a gift, and it's a thing that humans we corrupt, like we talked about earlier. Yeah. We corrupt.
It's double-edged.
And the biggest thing I would say too is, well, you look at the state of the world now. God, with that free will, right? We have the free will to choose how much we allow him in our lives, like I said. And as a country, we choose to allow him by our actions, right? We make the choice as a country of how much we let him in. You look at the country and you say, okay, well, the world's getting worse and worse and worse. Okay, well, it's having less and less and less God. God's less and less and less involved. America as a whole is saying, God, we want nothing to do with you. We want to do things our way.
Right.
So out of who God is and the love he goes, okay, I'm not going to force myself on you, America. If you choose, if this is what you want life without me, you don't want me involved, then I'm going to allow you to have that choice. But the repercussions are on you. You know, and that's really, you know, and so like when you see how, you know, the way this country is going, well, you know, it's our choice. Yeah. You can't blame God for our choice because he gives us that choice.
Absolutely.
And like, that's the thing. He said, I'm giving you the choice. So we're choosing it. We're getting the repercussions.
But let me ask you, as a young man, a pastor, how do you view a kid and tell them about the mass shooting? How do you go about it? If they said, why did somebody my age just get gunned down in a classroom? Like, how does a pastor go about it?
We talk about the fact that, you know, like kind of like what we talk about free will, you know, we talk about how, you know, that is a reality of this world, but we talk about how that's why our hope can't be in this world, that it's to something more than just here, because this world's full of evil. This world's full of people that do what they want to do. And, you know, that's why our hope has to be in him. It can't be in people and in light. Like that's where it needs to be, you know, and when it comes to these kind of things, because this world's fallen and everything that happens in it, like there's going to be bad things that happen. And sometimes at the end of the day, you just go, that is really horrible. Like that's just really sad. And there's no anything else. But the thing is too, like our God, you think your heart is broken. Think about how much more his is. That's also his kid, his creation, that made the decision to do that. And God literally did everything to prevent. He did everything to prevent that when he sent the church, when he sent Jesus, when he sent those things, because that is that love. And if that person would have grabbed a hold of that person would have grabbed a hold of that hope or anything like that, there was opportunities,
right? You
know, like that's not something he wants either.
No,
but it's part of allowing us to have free will. And, you know, that's you know,
that was well said. That was just one question we had from the audience, and I hope they, you know, they
you know, it's you're not gonna have an answer for everything. It's like sometimes things don't need answers. It's the fact that really stinks. It's really horrible. That stinks. It sucks, you know. But, you know, this is what the church is here for. This is what God placed us here. It's meant to be an actual church is a church that makes a difference.
Absolutely.
An actual church is a church that is a family, that gives foundation, that gives support, that is a place to go when things are hopeless.
Right.
You know who you go to. You know who you pray to for that change.
Wow. I mean, that's a lot to absorb, and I really hope that the people at home that are checking out this podcast, episode 3, really take what you had to say, you know, with a lot, Pastor Johnny. We really, you know, does anybody else that's on the podcast have any other questions to throw his way?
No, I'm good. I mostly answered everything.
Okay.
I'm also good.
Okay.
We basically covered everything.
All right, that's awesome. So, Pastor Johnny, you know, first and foremost, thank you so much for being on this.
Yeah,
you know.
no, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm glad you had one heck of a time. I'm going to leave you with one final question, though. What do you want to be remembered for?
You know, it's going to sound a lot like what I've been saying, but at the end of the day, man, like, if, you know, people look back and, like, you know, like, oh, like, you know, say one thing about me or remember one thing about me, it's that no matter what, he gave his all for Jesus. No matter what, he stood strong with his faith and he loved his God. And no matter what he faced or what he went through, like, he stuck firm to that because, dude, at the end of the day, man, like, for me, that's all that matters. Everything else falls from that, you know, relationships, family, all that kind of stuff. But all that matters is him. And if that's what I'm remembered by, and people like look back and think that of me, then I lived a life that was well worth it, and I could be smiling about that.
Hey, man, fist pound right here. Thank you so much for being on this podcast.
Yeah,
Guys,
absolutely.
we have so much more coming our way. This is just the first season. There's more seasons to come. Thank you, Pastor Johnny, and everybody else who was on the podcast. We thank you guys so much, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for being part of this episode. We really like to thank John for coming in and sitting with us. We know many of the listeners out there may not share the same views as well as some of the cast of our podcast in terms of religion. However, at the Remember Us podcast, we are all open and respectful to everyone, and we just want to reassure you that we are a safe space for everyone. With that, just as Rob said, we are not finished. We have a couple more episodes planned for the rest of Season 1 of the Remember Us podcast. As we look forward to recording and finishing them, we will be getting ready to prepare our second season and bring you all more content. This is Rob number 2, thanking you all and hoping you have a wonderful day.